Every time the crypto market calms down and investors start to feel safe again, something happens that reminds everyone just how unpredictable this world really is. A new warning has been issued this time, not by the media or the skeptics, but by someone who knows the XRP ecosystem from the inside. An XRP specialist with years of experience has just sounded the alarm about what could be coming next for the price of XRP. And it's not what most holders want to hear. But if you truly understand the cycles of this market, this warning might be exactly what you need to prepare for what's ahead. Welcome back to Crypto Equation, where we decode the truth behind XRP Ripple and the digital revolution that's already reshaping finance. In today's video, we're diving deep into the warning that's shaking the XRP community and explaining why it might actually be a blessing in disguise. Because sometimes a warning isn't meant to scare you, it's meant to wake you up before opportunity passes by. Let's begin with what the specialist actually said. According to several high-level analysts who track on-chain data liquidity flows and market behavior, XRP is approaching a critical zone that could trigger one of two outcomes. Either a short-term correction that clears out weak holders or a major breakout that redefines its long-term trajectory. The warning isn't about doom, it's about positioning. The next few months could decide who wins and who loses in this next phase of the market. The specialist emphasized that many retail investors are focusing on the wrong signals. They're watching daily price movements instead of global liquidity trends. The truth is, XRP's future has very little to do with what happens on crypto exchanges and everything to do with what happens in the real economy. Ripple's partnerships with financial institutions, central banks, and payment networks are slowly setting the stage for something far bigger than most people realize. But here's the key. XRP's integration into global systems won't look like a sudden explosion. It'll begin quietly with liquidity corridors forming behind the scenes, and that's exactly where we are right now. The warning comes because most investors don't have the patience to wait for real adoption. They want instant results. But in the process, they're ignoring the signs that the foundation is being laid right in front of them. Ripple has already partnered with the National Bank of Georgia, with the Central Bank of Colombia, and with the Monetary Authority of Singapore for cross-border settlement testing. Each one of those partnerships expands the utility base for XRP. Yet every time the price dips a few cents, retail investors panic, as if fundamentals have changed. The specialist said something that every holder needs to remember: the price always lags behind utility. Markets reward belief long after conviction is tested. Right now, XRP is being tested again, and if history repeats itself, that means accumulation is happening quietly while fear takes over the headlines. Think about what happened in 2018 when XRP dropped below 30 cents after reaching over $3. Everyone said it was finished, yet within a few years it was back in the spotlight again after Ripple announced its partnerships with MoneyGram and Santander. The pattern is clear. Every major XRP rally begins with silence, disbelief, and fear. That's why this warning isn't meant to scare you out of your position. It's meant to help you survive the phase that destroys most investors. Because most people don't fail because they bought the wrong asset, they fail because they couldn't hold through the right time. The specialist pointed out that the biggest danger right now isn't a price crash, it's emotional exhaustion. People are tired of waiting for clarity, and that's exactly when they make the worst decisions. They sell too soon. They walk away right before the reversal. And when the next leg begins, they watch from the sidelines while regretting the moment they gave up. The market is designed to wear you out before it pays you out. If you understand that, you'll stop reacting emotionally and start thinking strategically. Let's take a closer look at what the data actually says. On-chain metrics show that large wallets holding between 100,000 and 10 million XRP are quietly increasing their positions. At the same time, retail holdings under 1,000 XRP are shrinking. That means accumulation by strong hands and distribution by weak ones. Every single time that pattern appeared in the past, it preceded a significant move upward months later. The specialist emphasized that these cycles aren't random, they're engineered by market psychology. When fear rises, liquidity dries up. When confidence returns, liquidity floods back in. The trick is that big money moves before retail sentiment flips. That's why you'll never hear the media say it's time to buy. You'll only hear that it was a good idea after the price has already doubled. Right now, XRP is trading at levels that don't reflect its true potential, and that disconnect creates both risk and opportunity. The risk is short-term volatility, but the opportunity is long-term transformation. Ripple continues to expand globally despite market sentiment. Their focus is not on hype, but on integration. Every month, new corridors are opening from Asia to the Middle East to Latin America. These corridors are the backbone of the on-demand liquidity system that uses XRP for cross-border payments. As adoption grows, so does the demand for liquidity, and as liquidity grows, the token price must eventually reflect it. The specialist said XRP is like a spring being compressed by uncertainty. The longer it stays undervalued, the stronger the eventual expansion. But here's the part most investors ignore, that expansion can't happen if retail holders panic every time the market dips. Price discovery only happens when liquidity is stable, and right now volatility is testing that balance. The specialist warned that we could see one final correction before the next major rally. That correction could push prices lower temporarily and shake out anyone who doesn't understand what's happening. But that correction is not a failure, it's a setup. Because historically, every major bull cycle began with one last panic drop that transferred coins from weak hands to strong ones. The people who survive that drop are the ones who make history. The warning, therefore, isn't about fear, it's about patience. The XRP specialist said something profound that everyone should write down. In crypto, your profit is not earned when you sell, it's earned when you hold through discomfort. The market punishes impatience but rewards understanding. And right now, understanding XRP means realizing that we are in the infrastructure phase. Prices may be sideways or even down, but the adoption curve is up. Ripple's technology is being woven into financial frameworks across continents. And once the regulatory switch flips, the entire narrative changes overnight. This is why you can't measure progress in daily charts. You have to measure it in partnerships, policies, and liquidity corridors, because that's where the real game is being played. XRP is being built into the plumbing of finance. And when that plumbing goes live, you won't have time to react. You'll either already be in or you'll be watching from the outside. That's why the specialist issued this warning now to remind holders that the real crash isn't the price falling, it's your belief collapsing. Because when you lose conviction, you lose position. And when the rebound comes, it's too late to rebuild it. The market doesn't warn you twice. Every major opportunity in history follows the same pattern: disbelief, correction, adoption, explosion. We are somewhere between the second and third stages. The disbelief is fading, the correction is nearly complete, and adoption is quietly accelerating. The only thing left is recognition, and that's when everything changes. The recognition phase is the moment when the world finally connects the dots and realizes what has been building all along. For XRP holders, that recognition could come suddenly, and it will catch most people off guard. The XRP specialist made it clear that this market doesn't move slowly once clarity arrives. It moves violently because liquidity flows are exponential, not linear. When the system flips and XRP becomes necessary for bridging currencies, the price will move in ways the average investor isn't prepared for. But before that happens, we have to pass through one final test: a psychological purge that determines who's ready for what's next. Most investors fail not because they lack intelligence, but because they underestimate time. They can predict where the market is going, but not how long it will take to get there. The specialist said that the coming months will be filled with mixed signals. Prices may rise sharply, only to fall back again. News cycles will swing from optimism to fear in a single week. That's how the market shakes conviction out of even the strongest hands. Those who rely on emotion will get lost. Those who rely on logic will endure. If you look back at every financial revolution, from gold to the internet, the same story repeats. Early believers are tested again and again until the world finally catches up. XRP's story will be no different. The technology works, the partnerships exist, and the regulatory progress is visible. What's missing is patience. The specialist's warning wasn't a prediction of failure. It was a reminder that short-term pain is part of long-term success. If you want to benefit from what's coming, you must separate noise from narrative. The noise is price. The narrative is adoption. Ripple continues to execute globally. Its on-demand liquidity network is processing billions in volume annually, expanding corridors from Mexico to the Philippines, from Singapore to the UAE. Every new integration strengthens XRP's role as a settlement bridge. The liquidity these corridors demand cannot be supplied by speculation alone. It will require stable value supported by institutional liquidity providers. That means when adoption reaches scale, XRP's valuation will shift permanently. The problem is that 99% of investors will not hold long enough to see that moment. They'll sell during uncertainty, just before the transition. That's why this warning exists, to stop smart people from making emotional mistakes. When everyone else is focused on short-term moves, you need to focus on structural change. The global financial system is being re-engineered in real time. Payment rails are being rebuilt, settlement models are being redesigned, and the concept of money itself is evolving into digital liquidity. Every central bank is developing its own digital currency. But what most people don't realize is that these digital currencies cannot function in isolation. They need interoperability. They need a bridge asset. They need what XRP already provides. That's why Ripple's partnerships with central banks are so critical. They are not experiments. They are early implementations of the future. The warning you're hearing isn't to scare you, it's to prepare you. Because when this transition reaches full scale, it will not wait for retail investors to catch up. The institutions are already positioning. They understand what's coming, and they're accumulating quietly. The XRP specialist emphasized that the next revaluation phase will not look like a retail-driven bull run. It will look like a liquidity-driven repricing. That's a completely different dynamic. It happens fast, it's triggered by necessity, and it's sustained by usage. Retail traders will think it's manipulation, but it's actually utility being priced in. The key is that this shift will happen suddenly after a long period of silence. That's why conviction now matters more than excitement later. You cannot buy conviction at the top. You have to build it at the bottom. And that's exactly where we are. The silence, the doubt, the fatigue, these are the signals of a market preparing for its next phase. The XRP specialist put it simply, every crash is a test, every rally is a reward. If you're tired now, that means you're early. Because the market always feels hardest right before it moves. Look at what's happening around the world. Inflation is pressuring fiat currencies. Cross-border payments are being redefined. Governments are acknowledging the need for blockchain transparency. All of these forces lead to one inevitable outcome, a new global standard for value transfer. And when that standard is chosen, it will not be a random meme coin or a speculative gamble. It will be an asset that is proven, scalable, and regulatory compliant. That's XRP's lane. The price warning is not a prophecy of collapse. It's a wake-up call to stop focusing on price alone. Because while the market panics over pennies, institutions are preparing for trillion-dollar flows. That's the irony of every financial revolution. The people closest to the opportunity are often the last to recognize it. Don't make that mistake. The warning is an opportunity to zoom out, refocus, and strengthen your belief in what you hold. Because if you lose belief now, you'll lose everything later. The market's job is to transfer wealth from the impatient to the patient. It's been doing that since the beginning of time. If you understand that principle, you'll stop fearing volatility and start embracing it as part of the process. The XRP specialist closed the warning with one final thought. He said that the world is entering an age where speed and liquidity define power. The nations, institutions, and individuals who master those two things will control the next century of finance. XRP is built for that purpose. It's not about being the most popular coin, it's about being the most useful. The moment the global system requires that utility, the price will follow function instantly. That's why you can't measure progress in weeks or months. You have to think in cycles. The current cycle is correction and accumulation. The next will be adoption and recognition. When that begins, it will move faster than anyone expects. So take this warning seriously, but don't mistake it for fear. It's guidance, it's preparation. It's the kind of message that every great investor hears before the world changes. The only question is whether you'll listen. Because one day, when XRP is being used daily by banks and institutions, when its price no longer depends on speculation, but on global liquidity, people will look back on this moment and realize this was the opportunity. The price warning wasn't a threat, it was a gift. The chance to strengthen your position, refine your mindset, and be ready for what's coming. Because what's coming isn't just another market move, it's a complete redefinition of money itself. And those who understand that before it happens will be the ones telling the story after it does. This is Crypto Equation, reminding you that warnings don't mean fear, they mean focus. The future is being built right now, quietly, and the moment it goes live, the price will speak for itself. Stay patient, stay informed, and remember, belief always pays better than panic.